Time moves differently for those chasing a dream. For Jake Miller, the passage of months was measured not in calendar pages, but in waves conquered, skills mastered, and the gradual transformation from an outsider to a legitimate member of the surfing community. 2 years had passed since his arrival in Santa Cruz. The farm boy from Nebraska had become something else entirely, a surfer with a reputation for unconventional technique and unbreakable determination. Marcus Rodriguez's surf school had become Jake's second home. What had started as mentorship had evolved into a complex relationship, part father figure, part coach, part friend. Marcus saw in Jake something rare, a pure passion that transcended the typical surf culture's obsession with image and immediate success. "Your strength comes from where you're from," Marcus would tell him during their early morning training sessions. "Most surfers try to fight the ocean. You've learned to work with it, just like you worked with the land back home." Jake's body had transformed. The farm-bred muscles that once seemed out of place among sleek surfers had become an advantage. His understanding of rhythm, learned from years of agricultural work, translated perfectly to reading wave patterns. Where other surfers saw chaos, Jake saw a complex, predictable system. His living situation had improved, but only marginally. A small apartment near the beach, shared with 2 other aspiring surfers, Tommy Chun, a mechanical engineering student with dreams of designing surfboards, and Kai Kalama, a local Hawaiian whose family had surfed for generations. They were an unlikely trio, united by their love of the ocean and their struggle to make something of themselves. The local surfing community had gone from skeptical to intrigued. Jake's unique background became a talking point. A farm boy from Nebraska who could read waves like they were wheat fields. It was a story that captured imaginations. Local competitions became his proving ground. His first few attempts were rough. Jake didn't have the polished style of California-born surfers. His technique was different, more about understanding the wave's fundamental nature than performing flashy maneuvers. He moved with a farmer's practicality, a surfer's intuition. Sarah Rodriguez continued to track his journey, sending occasional emails and messages. Her own career as a journalist was taking off, and she saw Jake's story as potentially more than just a personal narrative. It was becoming a larger story about dreams, transformation, and the unexpected paths life can take. One crisp morning, everything changed. The annual Santa Cruz Surfing Championship was more than just a competition. It was a local institution, a proving ground for surfers from across the California coast. Professionals and amateurs alike would compete, with prize money and sponsorship opportunities that could transform a surfer's life. Jake had been training for months. Marcus had pushed him harder than ever, identifying both his strengths and the gaps in his technique. "You're not just learning to surf," Marcus would say. "You're learning to tell a story with every wave you ride." The morning of the competition was unlike any Jake had experienced. The beach was alive with energy. Surfboards of every design, surfers warming up, the air electric with anticipation. Tommy and Kai were there for support, their own competitive spirits mixing with genuine friendship. Jake's equipment told a story of his journey. His surfboard was a custom creation, partially designed by Tommy, shaped with input from Kai, reflecting the community that had become his family. It was a far cry from the beaten rental board he'd arrived with 2 years earlier. The competition was divided into multiple rounds. Preliminary heats would narrow down the competitors, with each surfer getting limited time to prove themselves. Jake's first heat was scheduled for mid-morning, when the waves were predicted to be most challenging. As he paddled out, Jake thought about his family back in Nebraska, about the wheat fields that had taught him rhythm and patience, about his parents, who still didn't fully understand his choice but had begun to respect his determination. The first wave came like a challenge. Where other surfers might have hesitated, Jake attacked. His movement was different, less about performance, more about communication. He wasn't trying to conquer the wave. He was dancing with it, speaking its language. His first run was extraordinary. Judges exchanged looks of surprise. This wasn't a typical California surfer. This was something different. As the day progressed, Jake moved through the competition's rounds. Each heat revealed more of his unique approach. He didn't have the most spectacular tricks, but he had something more important: a profound understanding of the ocean's rhythm. By late afternoon, Jake had made it to the final round. The beach was packed. Local surf enthusiasts, professionals, tourists, everyone was watching. The final would determine not just a championship, but potentially a future in professional surfing. Marcus watched from the shore, a mixture of pride and concern in his eyes. He had trained Jake, but the ocean was the ultimate teacher. Jake's final run would become legendary in Santa Cruz surfing circles. The wave was massive, challenging even for the most experienced surfers. Where others saw danger, Jake saw opportunity. His movement was poetry, a perfect blend of strength, intuition, and pure, unbridled passion. When he emerged from the water, the beach erupted. He hadn't just surfed. He had told a story. The story of a farm boy who refused to be limited by his origins, who found his true self in the most unexpected place. Jake Miller had arrived, and this was just the beginning.